Okay, we are at the top of the hour. We still have some people that are trickling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Platform Analytics Academy that we're having today. Really excited about the content that we're going to be going over today. I have myself and, of course, some other coworkers of mine that are on here. So, hopefully this is going to be really great content for you. And, please ask all the questions that you can. Get my slide deck moving. There we go. So as usual, this is always for you. We try as hard as we can to bring fresh ideas. You know what? I think I'll go on camera too. I seem to be outnumbered here, so I might as well do the same thing.
Oh, no, there's no peer pressure.
There we go.
Oh, you're meaner than I am, Tara.
So again, as usual, these are always for you. We try to bring as many fresh ideas as we possibly can to you. And of course, better understanding and some practical guidance. And I think there'll be a lot of that today. So this is being recorded. It will be out on the community event later on this afternoon, and of course, out on our YouTube as well this afternoon. And of course, use the Q&A. Please try to use the Q&A. We'll have other people that are monitoring it. So if a question can be answered, it will be answered via type or out loud. If it's something that's pertaining to a certain spot that we are and we feel like we need to stop, we'll go ahead and stop and ask that question as well. But please feel free to ask as many questions as you can. And if you could put those in the Q&A rather than the chat, that would really help out. A safe harbor. There could possibly be things that are mentioned inside of these presentations. So please don't make any sort of purchasing decisions based on that. I don't know how much of that we'll actually have today, but we always like to be safe and make sure that you all are aware. And again, my name is Thomas Davis, and today we have Tara and Dan that are actually going to co-present and bring some really good things around dashboard design strategies. And then also Adam is here as well, who always has just a wealth of knowledge. So I expect him to hopefully chime in at some point as well. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to give it to Dan or Tara, whoever is first, and we'll go ahead and get this thing started.
I'll be first. Yep, I'll be first.
Okay.
Go to Dan. Right. Okay, and as that slide that's up there right now indicates, we're talking about dashboard design strategies. So let me share my screen. So we'll go over to our slide deck here. Yep. So we're talking about dashboard design strategies. For some of you, this might be kind of a back to the basics, but we do want to make sure that we cover that. That we want to make sure that we're covering what I would consider to be some of the more basic stuff, but at the same time, we talk with customers all the time who really struggle with this. So I think this is a topic that is something that I think a lot of customers can use some guidance on. And the other part of this is, and I'm sure many of you have your own thoughts around it too. So please do feel free to share your ideas. That would probably be a good use if you want to share something. You might mention that in the chat. But if you have to ask a question, put that in the Q&A. So, but we'll definitely open to hear your ideas around this as well. So when we're talking about, okay, got to make sure we have the safe harbor. So our agenda for today is we're talking about the design, the different perspectives of design within a dashboard. So the topic we're going to cover are designing with intent, the organization of the content on your dashboard, the do's and don'ts, and just general helpful tips. We think there's some things that we've come across, and this is again where we're going to really, I'd be interested to hear your ideas too about any other helpful hints that you might have about the design. So what we mean by design with intent, that first part, we're really talking about the content, the actual data that you're putting on a dashboard. Then when we get into the organization, we're talking more about the design of what's there, how it's visually presented. And a point that I like to make on this, that we really want to stress, is how you present the information is just as important as what information you choose to present. So, and that's something that's often overlooked. I was joking with Tara a little bit earlier about this. I consider myself to be pretty good at the content part of what content to put on a dashboard and how to get there. I am probably not the best person to say I'm going to design it for you as well. I usually like to bring in others to help with the design elements. I can follow the basic rules like we're going to talk about today, I always like to give, this is a place where I also want to get your ideas. So when we're talking about dashboards, I want to put it in the context of this quote. I just love this quote. And think of this in the concept of the dashboards that we present our customers. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. And that this is, I've thought of this message. I try to find good ways to talk about this message with customers on one-on-one calls all the time. And I think this is a great way to put it. It's not how much can I put into a dashboard. It's what is the least amount that I can present on the dashboard and still provide the information that my customer or that my consumer of that dashboard needs. So it's the less is more. If I have more content I need to add, that should probably be a different tab or a different dashboard, or maybe not on the dashboard at all. So, but that's so the idea is to, when we look at a dashboard, we look at the content of it. Is there anything I can take away from this and still provide the primary intent of this dashboard or of this tab? That's the way we really want to think of it. So that really leads into the discussion of designing with intent. I'm gonna do a quick switch here. I want bear with me for just a moment here. Having my own technical issues, but that's all right, no worries. So, but we say there's really two primary perspectives of purpose. We talk about the purpose. What is the purpose of a dashboard? A purpose of your dashboard should never have anything to do with my customer said they wanted to see this data on it. Always, if you are designing your own dashboards and you represent the customer, you want to always keep this in mind. But also, a way a lot of customers work is they might have a business analyst or even someone from IT that's actually developing the dashboard for them. That wouldn't be the ideal in most scenarios from my perspective, but in some companies that's just the way it works. But if you're in that latter scenario, we really want to enable you, really want to encourage you to push back if someone just says, I need these 15 things on my dashboard. And start really from these two perspectives in mind. It should be when in general users are viewing a dashboard to do one of two things. They're there to either take an action. So who is my consumer of this dashboard and what actions do I expect them to take as a result of this information? Secondly is also just to start a conversation, which in a way is an action itself, but we're just saying, so how am I trending against my goals? So KPI should always, always, always tie back to a specific goal. I won't go through the whole presentation again. Some of you are veterans and have seen us present on this numerous times, but we have lots of information on the community about like how to pick metrics and how to, but the main theme of it is start with a primary organizational objective and then work and then analyze your way down to what the KPIs are. So if my organizational objective is I need to reduce costs by 10%, then on this dashboard, maybe it's for the executive, maybe it's for the executive's direct reports, I want to think about what are the KPIs that support that specific objective, that specific goal. So it's either to take an action on it. So there's something that I say I'm a director and I need to take action on an area that is driving up costs that my dashboard is showing me. I can take action on that, or it starts a conversation. I'm the executive and I say, hey, line level manager, why is the average time to resolve? Let's say that's one of your cost factors. Why is that going up? They're not going to drill into the details of it. It's not their job to go in and say what is exactly causing it. At my level, at the executive level, I just want to see what's the top line and are we getting worse or better? So it starts a conversation. And that's really what we're talking about here. And then we want, and that's what I mean by tying back to a specific goal. So when we're talking about business goals, We want to make sure that when you're starting from dashboard content, you want to understand your goals. So thinking of this again from the perspective of, if is it my business unit? Is it my department's dashboard that I'm presenting, or am I the designer that I'm helping another department put their dashboard together? But you always want to think of it from these goals perspective. What are the business goals? I talk with customers a lot when I used to do implementation projects. I used to be on our services group, and the first question I always ask is, what is your primary reason for investing in ServiceNow? And I will tell you that many customers got a blank look in their face because there wasn't that conversation between the executive level and the implementers to say, what is it we're trying to achieve by moving to ServiceNow? What's our organizational reason? Because that can be usually a great starting point for determining what it is that I want to put on my dashboards. So I need to start identifying, what is our purpose? If our purpose was to reduce costs, if our purpose was to increase knowledge use, or whatever that purpose is. So these goals are usually determined by the C-level teams. So understanding those goals, start the conversation. So in a couple of examples, that reducing IT spend by 10%, increase customer satisfaction might be even more specific on a, let's say, like, and not just even a CSAT score, but maybe it's a I kept suddenly forgetting the term, the customer index,
NPS.
Thank you, net promoter. Thank
I was
you,
thinking-
thank you. Net promoter score might be that, or attaining 95% self-service workflows. These are things that generally the line level folks who are working on your incidents, working on your cases, working on the day-to-day task records may not have visibility to. We want them to know what their top level objectives are so that they can see how the work they're doing aligns with those top objectives. Know your audience. Key part here. So, and we have this example of, using that example of reducing IT spend. So a service owner of, let's say, a person who owns the desktop support services, they have a different perspective on what data they want to see, what KPIs they want to see, than the executive would. Now, if I'm the desktop support service owner, I want to know what the executive's goals are. And so I might want a main dashboard that gives me a small little number that says what KPIs they're looking at. But I want the main part of this dashboard to tell me what are the things I can do to help improve the executive's objective scores. So how can I impact trends that affect cost and quality? Same thing for your frontline workers. If I have an agent level dashboard, how put things on there that helps them understand how they can work better to work towards that overall reduction of IT costs. So it's thinking of, there should never be a thought of one dashboard to rule them all. We really want to look at lots of different, of multiple dashboards, not lots of different, but multiple dashboards for multiple stakeholders, and it's types of stakeholders. So who are they? What is their purpose? So what are they trying to accomplish with that dashboard? What do they do? What do they do with the data? What do they do with the information? So if I'm the executive, do I need to report that? Do I need to be able to defend that number back at the C-level staff meetings? These are the sort of things that we're talking about. What is it that they need to get out of this dashboard? And just as important is, can you tie it all back to that top level goal? So ultimately, all the metrics for my different personas here, all my metrics for each of these different personas should ultimately roll up to the goals at the executive level. So we're all aligned. Okay. Understanding their journey. So find out the steps your users take before arriving to your dashboard and where they go next. So what are their needs? So where have they come from? If it's an executive, where they're coming from is probably a very different place than your customer service agents working on CSM cases. That they're coming right from their tasks. as we start moving into the workspace world with Next Experience, that's going to become even more important, because the dashboard content that you present to an agent is going to be, is probably going to be very different in their workspace than the dashboard you present to your line level managers or to your executives. So these are all the different things to consider. Is the KPI actionable? Is the action intuitive? Does the presentation, does it give me data in a way that makes it clear to me as a consumer of that dashboard what I'm supposed to do with it? If it just says MTTR is going up, what does that tell me? If I'm an agent, does that tell me anything? Because that's like, I'm a golfer, so it'd be like telling a golfer, you really need to get your scores down into the 90s, because I'm over 100. So you need to get your scores down into the 90s. Okay, great, thanks. That really helps. What can I do? So we put out information for the agents that might say things like, how well are you utilizing knowledge articles? How many reassignments are there on cases that you open? That sort of thing. But it all still rolls up to that top level goal. So that's just a quick look at the content side of things. And I want to stop to see, I see there's some things in chat and at least one Q&A. So do we have questions or issues that we should discuss here before we move on?
Well, we did have a question come through that says, I'm curious to know how prevalent PA usage is amongst ServiceNow customers. Any idea? And
yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, go for it.
And I would say, and it's interesting because because we've actually been working on some of those exact. We've had kind of decent numbers, really all along, but we've really been focusing a lot more recently on those in the last 6 months or so. I would say we probably have PA usage for those who are eligible for PA. So they have like ITSM Pro, ITOM Pro. They have one of the Pro licenses. So they have PA. We probably see 60 to 70%, and probably even more than that. I want to say PA was probably in the mid 70s of those who are entitled to use it. But when I say usage, that can mean a lot of different things. What we're saying is they've shown signs of use signatures, how we intend PA to be used. Doesn't mean they're doing anything really advanced with it. It just means they're doing some basic usage with it. So that's good. So that's a good question. So why not just turn PA on and let the customers go in and create dashboards? That is a whole other discussion, and that around the governance piece, a lot of customers will do that. Will just say, I can allow anyone to create a dashboard. And by the way, that is the default. That is the default for a dashboard. The default permissions is any user who has a system login can create a dashboard. By default, though, they can't share it. They're not visible to everybody, and they're limited to what content they can place on that page. It's not until they get like the PA power user or PA admin can they do more with it, and can they share it more broadly. So some companies will do that, but I will do maybe a plug for a previous Academy session we did and the white paper that goes along with it on governance, that talks about the whole process of how we recommend, based upon a lot of our customer feedback, how we recommend addressing a lot of the governance issues when it comes to PA and reporting. But because there's different perspectives you can have on that, and there are different cases where you might want to handle that question differently. So as I said, some customers say just turn it on and let anyone do what they want to with it. I wouldn't, but I would be very careful with the PA power user and PA admin. I would recommend to have at least some baseline level of training and demonstration of competence in usage of PA before I give anyone the PA power user. There's also a really good knowledge session from a couple years back that Lisa Barrymore from Walmart presented, where she talked about her process of doing that. So, really good question.
Yeah, Dan, I think that you could probably move forward. I'll
get
the
let's go ahead and move
session
forward
and paste that in there, and then
okay.
I think some of the other ones might get answered as you move forward.
All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and move forward to Tara.
Links to. Okay, so I am going to talk to you very briefly about organization, and then I'm actually just going to jump into a demo. So we have a few more slides that are in this deck that kind of talk about some of the stuff that I'd rather just demo for you. Oh yeah, you still have to share.
Sorry, never.
So I'll just touch on these next couple of things pretty briefly, and then jump into the demo of some of the things we're talking about. So placement, when organizing dashboard content, you want to think like your users. And you also want to think about one of the things that Dan touched on and that we continue to touch on is, what is that high level business goal? What is my objective as an organization? And as the dashboard that I've just created for you or for my user consumer, what is their specific goal that ties back to that high level business goal? That should be the most prevalent item on your dashboard. And we recommend leveraging the Z pattern so that you have your most important information at the top left-hand corner that tells you, okay, this is what my goal is for this dashboard. That always ties back to the high level business goal. I will always continue to say that. Do the KPIs on this dashboard contribute to the business goal? That's always something that you should always ask yourself. A lot of times users will come up to you and ask for, I want to know how many open cases I have. I think Victor asked about support dashboards. How many open cases do I have? What does that tell you other than how many open cases you have? It doesn't give you an action. It doesn't tell you if that's a good or a bad number. It doesn't give you much of anything other than information. But if you think about it from a different perspective, what percentage of my open cases are sitting, in the queue for more than 3 days? Or which percentage of my open cases are critical? Which percentage of my open cases haven't been closed in 3 months? Stuff like that is more actionable. It gives you an objective. It ties back to a business goal. Is if you're trying to increase customer satisfaction and you're not closing cases for 3 months, or you're not picking them up from the queue in 3 days. Those are things that actually tie back to a specific business goal that are actionable by a specific user who's accessing a dashboard. They should know by looking at the analytics on the dashboard, especially if you have everything in what we call above the fold, which means that you don't have to scroll down to see more data. As much actionable, relatable information to that goal is above the fold. They should know exactly what action they have to take by looking at it. So placement is critical. If they have to continue to scroll, if they have to go to 3 different tabs to figure out what they need to do, if there's way too many widgets on a dashboard, that can also be jarring. We talk about we have worked with our own designers here at ServiceNow. And one of the things that we've found through our user research is cognitive load in your own, something that actually impacts the way your brain processes information, is a huge thing we never thought about that design actually impacts. If you think about things and you keep things clean and simple and not crowded, you streamline your process, the way the data is consumed will actually reduce cognitive load. That's hard for me to say for some reason, and allow your users to get to where they need to get a lot quicker, rather than having them have to process a bunch of stuff and figure out what they need. And then we also recommend high priority actionable items always at the top, above the folds, and then any additional information could be on another tab or below the fold. And if they are related specific to each other, like for example, if you have my percentage of open backlog that is critical, but you also want to show all your open backlog and what different states they're in at the time, you can put those next to each other so that they're supporting information, and you can tell, okay, I need to address my critical ones first, but it looks like I have a lot of P4s, way more P4s than I probably should have, which means that they've been sitting out there because they're a lower priority. And that actually impacts customer satisfaction, because it doesn't matter if it's a low priority, that low hanging fruit is generally the percentage of your workload. And so you need to think about how to flesh that up to the surface. And so you want to make sure that you are thinking about where you place this stuff and how you put it together. Go ahead, Dan.
Come on. Okay, there we go. Okay.
And
User
then
error.
Yeah, very quickly, I touched on Z pattern. This is just a definition of what the Z pattern is, right? It follows the way the human eye reads, right? Left to right. And so we put our most pertinent information up in the top left-hand corner, and then we gradually put supporting information, just like we were reading a book, right? Top row from left to right is the most critical stuff. And then the next row is supporting of all of that stuff. Either it relates directly to it or supports it and shows you what actions you take. And it's just a simple, clean and concise way for users to consume data in the same way that we generally tend to read. I am being a little bit ignorant in the fact that I understand other folks read from right to left, but there are in those countries where that is, you can switch the design and just flip it. And that would work just as well. But it's the same concept, is consuming it cognitively so that you know how it flows in a way that tells you the story, what actions to take, and supports all of your goals.
You read my mind, because I was thinking, I was going to ask, are there cultural differences in that? So
absolutely. And you apply culturally what makes sense, as long as you're applying a design that it follows that same guidelines, right? It helps you support meeting your goal. Next slide. Relevance. So this is another thing that I kind of touched on already. Make sure you have relevant content. Anything that's irrelevant or supporting or informational, is stick it on another tab. I'm a huge fan of if people come to you, and you've heard, many of you who have heard me talk before, heard me say, no is an answer. If someone comes to you and says, I need to have this analytic, why? Why do you need it? What problem are you going to solve? Is it something that your CXO is just asking for because it's a number that they've always had? That's fine. I'll give it to you, but you're getting it on another tab, because I am telling you, this is what we need to improve our processes, our workflows, highlight where we're inefficient. And as a report writer, designer, I need to make sure that you are getting the most out of this on the front page. So is this data visualization needed? Sometimes no is the answer. What action does it drive? Can you tell me why you need it? And then can it be combined with anything else? So we do have several charts out there that you can, I'm excited to see that Steven's on this call, because I'm going to show you the workbench in a little bit. And there's a good way of combining when you have a lot of data that users are asking for that need to be consumed, and your goals are specific to that. There are different widgets out there where you can combine it, so it simplifies how you're consuming that data. And now I am going to jump into a very quick demo.
Now I can stop sharing, I guess.
Yes, you can, sir. Okay, I'm gonna close that. I'm going to share my screen in just a second. I'm getting all set up here. Okay, so let me share my screen. There we go. All right. So some of the things that this is what the rest of the deck. So when Thomas shares the deck out with you, this is what's documented in the rest of the deck. I just thought I would show you. So in this specific design example here, our goal is to increase our customer satisfaction score of this specific dashboard. So we want to see, okay, in the top left-hand corner, what is my customer satisfaction score if my goal is to improve that? And then what contributes directly to that customer satisfaction score? My percentage of breached SLAs. Ding, 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 huge. Do I have changes that are coming up in the next 7 days that are going to impact whether or not instances go down? Customers have access to stuff. That's a big one, as well as mean time to resolve, right? That's always a big issue of whether or not we're getting and closing our workload. I believe someone asked about support. What is a good support dashboard? We do have this available as out of the box dashboard that you could pick up working with some of our teams. There's a few more tabs on this dashboard as well, but you won't see it in this demo. But we do have this available out of the box. It is directly related to support, and it does highlight as a goal improving customer satisfaction. We look at our open workload, and workload means all of what we got going on. How many incidents do we have? How many problems? How many requests? Now, in this example, this is what we have available out of the box. I might switch some of these to be percentages of other things that are being impacted. But as an IT professional group, this is what they felt would be the most supportive to customer satisfaction. And we agree that these are all supporting analytics. So they all go in that same Z pattern that we talked about. And everything supports this high level goal, which is increasing customer satisfaction. The other thing we also want to think about is that cognitive load that we were talking about. What draws, what pulls you in and captures you, whether or not you know what action to take. But also, are my colors calming? If I have colors on here, they need to be related to whether or not you have a good, like right down here, you see that this is red. We're down 0.9%. I want to be drawn to that. I want to know, okay, there's something going on here. Something's wrong. I need to take action. Down here with mean time to resolve, our mean time to resolve has gone up. That's bad too, right? You set that up when you create your indicators and all that. You set up these color changes. You want those to be the colors that you're drawn to. Our breached SLA is up. That probably should be bad though. We'll have to look at that.
Yeah, it's demo data. So yeah.
Yeah.
This
But
is not any live data.
Those are the colors that you want to draw your eye to. So if you need to use background colors, border colors, they should be soft and calming. If you're going to use, we recommend not having borders and either using lightly colored headers. So in this example here, we have lightly colored headers. One of the things that we're really big on as well is if you have single scores on a dashboard, use the same template. Unless you have something else you need to highlight, then move it to a different row. So for in this, I'll show you that in a different example. In this example here, we have all the same template on the top row. Everything is left aligned. Everything has the exact same color header. That keeps your cognitive load lowered so that you can focus on what you need to focus on and draw my attention to where I'm performing badly and where I can make those improvements, and not be looking for where's the title on this one, where's the title on that one, why is there all these different colors and all this other stuff. So you want to think about that while you're designing. Colors are important, and I've seen some pretty wild and crazy things out there. So using the same templates, not making, let me get into that in the next one. So on this next example, what we show here is using title alignment that is most appropriate with the widget. And I'll show you here, rather than have headers, in this example, we're going to change our background to be calming. And that also makes them stand out without making them be aggressive and in your face and all these hard lines and stuff. It just kind of gives a seamless, clean way to look. In the top row, I have all of the same visualizations. It's a left aligned single score. So I made sure that my title's left aligned. Here we have a single score that is center adjusted. So I made sure that my titles are centered adjusted. And then if I have, in this example, they're just all the same widgets. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you are clean and you have the same widgets next to each other. So it's kind of like easy to kind of jump from one to the other. You don't have to figure out, well, why does this one look different? Is it talent? It's not confusing or jarring. You always want to be thinking about that, because it is a thing to be worried about how your consumers are absorbing this data. This one's just for you, Stephen. I do have an example of a workbench widget. And this is a personal joke between me and Stephen, so I know he's laughing really hard right now. But we do have this workbench widget, and this is a way to combine and consolidate data when you have a lot of information. Instead of putting all of this stuff on a dashboard, you can use a different visualization to combine it. We have lists, we have breakdowns, and this is another one that I like to use, because you're able to, it doesn't have to be used the way it was conceived. There are other ways to use it. And this team specifically decided, okay, I want to be able to show my open incidents because that was something that an executive asked for, even though we think it's just informational. But I can, by showing supporting metrics in the carousel, show everything that is critical and actionable based off of this score up here. So for my open incidents, which is an informational data point, I can show what of those open incidents have percents with problems, how many of those open incidents have missed SLA, what percentage has not been updated in the last 5 days. I can show all of these supporting metrics for just that one indicator, leveraging this visualization. So I really minimize how many widgets I have on a dashboard. I can just use this in one tab and simply and cleanly show a lot of supporting information in one visualization. And I can also apply breakdowns to it, so I can look at it for specific groups and specific subgroups within those groups. So this is a good way to absorb a lot of information in one visualization that still keeps that cognitive load down and still provides value by showing what is applicable. So you could put anything in here, but really you want to be thinking about, okay, if this is open incidents, how do I break that down to provide value into what I need to do with these open incidents? And we also show you can do problems, requests, kind of like whatever. This is another example of where we have a workbench because we want to look at activity by channel and figure out where we can make changes within our process. But in addition to that, we want to know what we're spending. And so instead of having all the single scores at the top, this team decided, let's put them on the left-hand side and let's continue to use the workbench on the right-hand side so I can continue to look and see, okay, I'm spending 1.7 on average cost per week, this is just demo data. So obviously that would be insane. But then we can also look at what's my cost per request, what are my mean times to resolve, what's closed past its actual due date. We can look and figure out where we can make changes to our workflow, increase automation, and reduce spend at the same time. And this is a good way to combine different types of widgets on the same dashboard without making it super busy and super like I have to move all over the place. Like we're making sure we have all of our titles aligned the same way. We're using, another thing that I didn't touch on was casing, using title casing versus sentence casing. Pick one and stick to it, right? There's preferences and it depends on the designer, to be honest with you, or the consumer or the person who's creating it. I like title casing. Our design team likes sentence casing. We use sentence casing most of the time in the stuff that we put out publicly, but it just kind of just pick one and stick to it. There's no golden rule of what's going to be easier to consume. It's just consistent. When things are different, even if it's something simple as a title, people notice that in the back of their mind and then wonder, is there something different about this? What do I need to figure out? Why is that different? And it takes away from the message that you're telling with your dashboard design. And then the don't sample, I was just going to show you really quick here was, you don't want a single score to take up, a whole row. That's crazy. They're single scores. They're small. They're designed to give you a lot of information at a quick glance and then move on. So you don't want them taking up. I mean, I only have 3 widgets on this page. I've got this one center aligned, this one left aligned with a weird, ugly color background. And then I was going to show you, you also don't want to pick distracting backgrounds, because then that is a huge impact on your cognitive load. Is like, where do I, especially red, green, yellow, any of the stoplight colors you want to avoid, because those are actually built in when you apply targets to your visualizations. And that will distract you from seeing what you should be focused on when you're looking and consuming a dashboard. I'm not a huge fan of abbreviations. So I put this in here as an example of what we would recommend you don't do. But if your whole team knows what it is, like CSAT's pretty obvious, but MTTR or stuff like that, some people actually have come to me and been like, what does that mean? And it's like, oh, mean time to resolve. Yeah, I see it and live it and breathe it every single day as a report writer, but yeah, maybe this isn't something you understand or know. And then if we get too carried away with abbreviations, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, or acronyms or whatever, people are spending more time figuring out what those are and less time focusing on fixing where the problem is. So again, no big giant scores. Everything could be similar. And then this is another example where we have 3 different scores. They're all tying back to the same goal, which is CSAT, improving CSAT, but we have plan changes at the top, reached SLAs on the right. Everything looks like it's different, and I don't know why. And so I'm going to think about that, even though I shouldn't be, or, it seems like it's not a big, like, why would I think about that? Like, it doesn't seem like something you should be thinking about or worrying about, but it is definitely something that we do think about. It is something that comes in the back of your mind, and you actually do spend time being impacted by it, even if you don't know you're being impacted by it, which is really weird. Let me make sure I touched on everything really quick.
Hey, Tara, real quick.
Hey, Thomas.
Yeah. Are there anything specific that you would, from a best practice perspective, to think about when using interactive filters or breakdown filters on the dashboard?
I do have a slide here. I'll go back to titles really quick.
If you're going to cover it, if you're going to get to it,
yeah, just real quick. We do have some recommendations on filters. So if you have a drop-down menu, right, avoid having a drop-down menu where they can't see all the choices at once. If they have to scroll, maybe that's not, if they have to scroll through like 50 or 60 things, maybe that's not a drop-down that you need to be using. There are ways to break down the data so that you have everything relevant, top in, or whatever it is. You have to think about the way you have your data structured and the way it's going to be consumed to make it easier for the customer to get to. Sometimes if they can type it in faster than having to pull it up in a drop-down list, then that's the choice that you want to make for your filter. Aim to have more than 7, but less than 15, so that it's not this huge ginormous list that they have to go through. And then ask yourself, is this something that I could present with radio buttons, as long as I don't have that many, and provide them all the options all at once, right, to see them. Use checks boxes when you have a small to medium list, so that if you have a multi filter. Did that answer the question, or do you want to ask it again?
We'll wait to see if they ask something additional on.
Okay. But we do recommend, and I don't think I actually put in this deck, but one of the designers that we worked with recommends, now that we have the option with the new experience, you can actually put the filter at the top, and it can work with all of your tabs. In the experience that we have today, they recommend you either put them at the top, across the top if you have more than one, and make sure you have them use the same type, same thing like we talked about with the widgets, or have a gutter, which is you have your filter either to the right or to the left, and nothing wraps around it. It's literally, I could just show you that. So I have to change this color because it's gonna drive me nuts. Oops. That's my favorite color because it's so calming. But here, like, let's say if I were to put a filter in here, I'm just gonna pick one. Just I don't even know if it applies to this, but we're just gonna pretend, just so I can show you an example. So what the designer recommends, and it's not a bad idea actually, is to keep it in the gutter, what they call a gutter, and then have everything, like, move this stuff. So you would make these a little bit smaller so that the filter stands alone. You know what I'm saying?
So it really stands out. Yeah, it's very visually stands out very.
I'm not.
No, it makes sense.
It's all the same size, and move these. Like right now, I'm just kind of on the spot here, but I don't know.
Nah, you got it.
you know what I mean. Put them so that they're not all, so that the gut, so see how it's a gutter here now? And then all my visualizations would be to the right. So then whatever I picked, all of these would change. They either recommend it on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Either it depends on your preference, but that it stands alone. So this is going to look crappy right now, but that it stands alone so that you can see very clearly. If I had more than one filter, I would have them all on the left, all on the right, or all on the top, so that everything below it, to the right or left of it, changes. And they're not wrapped. And what they mean by wrapped is let's not have, oh, I'm trying to move it while I'm not in design. It's not like here, like above it. It's not buried. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
My dog, it's not buried, it's not wrapped or hidden in here. It's not even have anything below it. They want it by itself, which I think is great advice. And I would concur with that. I didn't put it in the deck. I just didn't think about it until that question was asked. But you see where I'm going with it. It would take me a while to reformat these and make these the right sizes. You know what I'm saying?
But I get yeah, that's really good.
Hopefully that answers that question. And then let's see. I was gonna talk really quick about, I think filters was my last slide. And now it just wants to spin. Do you see it just spinning?
Yeah.
So okay, here we go. So I was gonna talk about widget titles. So one of the other things, we do have some out of the box content packs that are out there. Before we had designers on staff, years and years ago, that everything started with number of, age of, number of, and our designers came in and said, you're giving them way too much to read and process. It's obvious. Just put what it is, open incidents, and then they look it down and see it's a number. It's like pretty clear. So we recommend that as well. Simplify your titles. Be careful with abbreviations. Like I said, if you're going to use an abbreviation like MGR for manager, or something like that, just be consistent everywhere. That's fine. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one. CSAT's a pretty obvious one. Be consistent, have it everywhere, but keep things as small and to the point as possible, and avoid having these. I've seen some dashboards with some really long sentences. If you can't explain what that data is in a couple words, let's rethink what value it's actually bringing to the dashboard. All right, what other questions we got?
There was one question that was asked that I'm going to kind of add a little additional context to it. There's one question about the kind of noting that we're presenting on the classic dashboard. So I just want to talk about that.
Okay.
We are normally we like to present during the academies on the most current general availability release. We purposefully are not this time, because the dashboards in Next Experience are not in Tokyo are not yet feature complete. So they're not feature parity with the classic dashboard. So there's some of the content, some of the types of charts you have in classic dashboards are not yet available. That is an ongoing project to work towards feature parity between the two. So I just want you to be aware of that. Rules apply though. Same rules apply.
Yeah, absolutely. These rules apply to anything, actually any tool that you were using, right? Anything.
Yeah.
But we wanted to also go based off of the percentage of customers we have using what experience.
That's
and
also a really good point.
Research, most consumers are continuing to use classic, and so we can definitely do this one again in Next Experience. However, it's the same exact rules. Make sure you're using your borders and colors and using the Z pattern and making sure your data is relevant. See Stephen's question. Content pack versions. I'm gonna let Adam take that question.
Yeah.
The
same. In classic, I mean, we have the solution library for some of them, and some of them we don't. Just modify them. I mean, make the changes you need to. All of PA, I expect to be modified. All the content packs I think of as starter blueprints. their ideas to get started from for you to continue on. So go ahead, I mean, modify them and change them. I don't know off the top of my head, but Dan or Tara, Thomas, in Next Experience, there are a lot less content packs because they're just built into the workspace, right?
Right.
So the updates should be now like with less dashboards and more built-in analytics. It's just we upgraded as part of the normal process that they are going to get upgraded. There'll still be analytics and there'll still be some issues with these things, but the things that are core to the product should just upgrade. The rest of them just change them. Do what you need to do. The model. I wish we had used the model that we used with ATF. If you're not familiar with ATF, you can't modify out of the box. You copy them. You always copy them, and that's the way I approach the content packs. Either you just copy the whole thing, copy what you need, or go ahead and modify it. We are working to make it better in Next Experience, but in the classic one, we just kind of have to brute force through it. I always like having my PDI to go look if there's any meaningful changes, but ostensibly everybody's going to make a change to a data collector to set the user. They're going to make a change to change the time. You're going to have, we only use 3 priorities, not 4 priorities, or we have a different priority. There's going to be something you change and a lot you're going to build. So think of the content packs as starting points, which you absolutely want to start with. You don't want to start from scratch. You want to avoid starting from scratch. But whether you take the content pack, use it as inspiration and create everything, which might be right for you, or you take the content pack and tweak it, that's also great as well. Nobody has a pure out-of-the-box instance, and the content packs work for pure out-of-the-box instances, so everything needs to be modified. So I just don't be afraid to modify the analytics stuff. The other data modifying flows and business rules, that I wish they were giving you a hard time, but I do want you to think about it, but just don't have any hesitation about changing the out-of-the-box indicators and content packs and those things.
Okay, so Caro, did what you need get answered? Because I see a couple thank yous, but I'm not sure whether or not maybe. Okay, good. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so so Victor brought up one. I guess when we were right around the time we were talking about the Next Experience, he said he's going to Next Experience in 2 weeks. How do I find out which dashboards are not available?
Well, to be fair, Next Experience is a user interface. So your old dashboards will continue to work and exist in the Next Experience the same way you would access them today. Leveraging the left-hand navigation, going to performance analytics, looking at your dashboards. That's not going away for quite some time. You will, however, if you have to make the decision at some point, if you're going to leverage the Next Experience and start building your dashboard experience, it's almost like you're going to have your foot on one side of each side of the fence for a short period of time while we improve the Next Experience, because there are things in Next Experience that you can't do in Classic that are requested. Go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of things you can do in Next Experience that you can't do in Classic, and we have the safe harbor slide. Don't expect any enhancements in Classic, right? We are putting for a while now, we have been fully invested into Next Experience and those data visualizations. There's awesome ones. There's good stuff in Tokyo, even better stuff perhaps coming out in Utah, Vancouver, whatever the next one is. And continuing on, the suggestion I have when you move into Next Experience is, if we started talking about this before, know your audience. If your audience is using a dashboard or is using a workspace, then look at Next Experience and building a dashboard where you put in the dashboard viewer into the workspace and create a Next Experience dashboard. But if they're not in workspace, when we're in Tokyo, you don't want to force them to a workspace just so they can see your dashboard. We probably stay in Classic. If we're making a small tweak just on a Classic dashboard, stay in Classic. They all work. There's no changes to those things. I mean, it looks a little cleaner. The user interface is better, but get all the functionality, but go where your users go and know your audience. So if they're in a workspace, next experience is where you need to be looking, because I don't want them to jump out of the workspace to go back to the classic dashboards.
That help, Victor? Hope so.
He hasn't responded back yet, so
It was inspirational.
Yep, it did help. Yep.
Yay.
Okay.
Good. All right. We had another question that was around
However,
capacity and allocation, and
Uh-huh.
someone wondering, and I pushed a doc to them, but I don't know that that's exactly what they were looking for. So unless any one of you three know more about doing anything around capacity allocation, I kind of pushed them to ask the question inside of the community, but I'll open it up to the three of you if any of you have anything that you know on that.
What was the specific? I'm trying to look
So
through the answered ones here.
Yeah, the original question was, we're trying to create report chart to show capacity of team to see if they're over or under allocated based on the agile model, but can't seem to be able to get to that with basic reporting. Would we need to use PA? And I looked in docs, and the capacity planning page was something that I pushed to them, but I don't think that that's exactly what they're looking for.
I mean, the answer there is that's really, really complicated reporting. I wouldn't just go to PA. There's the resource dashboard. I'm assuming that's the link you sent there, but to the capacity dashboard from SPM. That's what I'd be looking to use. They built some special tools for that, but you get into really, really weird calculations in terms of available time about, do my 40 hours or do I only have 36 hours in my week? Do you want to count vacations, holidays, which support worlds do I live in? It gets really weird really quickly, and the SPM team spends a lot of time focusing in on that. And so you don't want to create a basic report. You want to use the stuff that's out there. I don't know the stat of as that's moving in the next experience and what changes they're making and how configurable it is. It's not quite as configurable as building something from scratch, but I've worked in this area. It's incredibly complicated. So unless you want to make a huge commitment to getting the logic right, which you can do, you want to ride on the reports that are available out of the box. I say report, it's not really a report. It looks like a report, but it's a customized UI with filters. It's a very specialized reporting. And I saw Victor chimed in about the workspace stuff. Your comment of I need to get to a workspace. Absolutely. I don't think reporting can be the tip of the spear. The team needs to buy into a workspace and build the report with them. As you're going to the workspace, add the dashboard with it. It's a great time. The dashboard, the inline dashboard builder in Tokyo is really nice. It's the things that we've been hearing about for years. A lot of them are already there, and more of them are coming. But if they're not on a dashboard yet, I don't think you can push them. You should look at it. So that you can take advantage of all the stuff. There's more carrots there, but the workspace has got to drive them. They need to buy into the workspace and being able to use playbooks and all the agent assist stuff, all the awesome stuff that comes with workspace. The new visualizations are just one more. We'll continue to help you in this journey and make it easier to do. But if they're not on workspace, if you have nobody using workspaces yet, nobody's using one of the workspaces, I wouldn't expect you to be releasing next experience dashboards broadly, right? Great, you got some time to prototype it, work with it, but take this time to learn about it and embrace it. Don't try to push it down people's throats.
I know we're just at the top of the hour here, but I wanted to address Artem's quick question here. This is which approach of distributing content is better? So to have more widgets on one tab, having several tabs in one dashboard, or having several dashboards? The first thing I'd say is more widgets on one tab is generally not the way you want to go. So if there's ever a question of should I put another widget on this tab, it's almost always no. But that's kind of based upon some of the principles Tara talked about earlier.
Right.
The discussion of whether it should be a different dashboard or a different tab, that is entirely based upon who is the stakeholder of that dashboard. And that's a good way to determine if you have if you're trying to do too much with one dashboard. If there's any piece of content that is not relevant to one of your primary consumers of that dashboard, but is relevant to others, it shouldn't, that first consumer should not be the target of that dashboard. It should be on a new dashboard for that person's role. But if it is relevant, then yeah, additional tabs are the way to go if it's still relevant to the same role, the same general. I don't mean role as in like system roles. I mean more like functional roles within your organization.
Yeah,
That's
and you
the way
want
you really
to,
want to
you
think about it.
also, one of the things I didn't touch on was the tabs. Is the tabs should be follow the same process that we talked about. All data should be relevant per tab. So if you have to have more than one tab, which I think if you're going to have more than one tab, no more than 4. Really, you know, 2 or 3 to me is probably too much. But I'm a very minimal. I want to know everything and I want it immediately and to the point. But if you do have to spread out over tabs, then you want to make sure that every single tab is self-containing and tells the same story. So if you're switching between, like if say you want a dashboard and you have 2 goals, you know, one is improving customer satisfaction and one's decreasing IT spend, and your CXO wants to see that, then you can have 2 tabs that relate to that information and then a third tab with just supporting KPIs, but that are informational, and that would be okay. But you definitely want to minimize how much your consumer has to dig through to figure out what they need to do. So keep everything related per tab, so that they know exactly what they need to focus on.
Okay, great.
All right,
So I think
perfect.
we are a little bit over, a couple minutes over, so we'll go ahead and close this out real quick to respect everybody's time. Dan and Tara, as usual, great content. Really appreciate the time and effort and all the questions or whatnot that you were able to put into it. It's always great content. It's going to be good to have this recorded and on record so we can definitely point people in the future. So thank you both for what you presented today. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Real quick. Yeah. So just final, you've probably seen these before, but make sure that you're checking out our platform analytics community page. Really great content there. And again, I put this link in there earlier, but it'll also be inside of the community event and also on the YouTube. Here is where you can go and actually see future, prior, future, and all that sessions that are out there. Take advantage of our Platform Analytics Academy Pro Tips. You can get those on the community as well. These are quick 5-minute videos where Dan, Tara, and I talk about different topics or whatnot, and expect more of those to come in the new year. Always make sure you're checking out Now Learning. The easiest thing to do is to go there and just search for analytics, and lots of things will come back. There are paid ones, there are free ones. So make sure that you're going and checking those things out. The PA Advanced is now on demand. So if that's something that you wanted to take before and you just couldn't get to it, now it is on demand. So make sure that you're checking that out. There are many other Academy sessions that are part of our organization as a whole, and they're listed here. So if there's any other ones that you're looking for related to these topics that you see on the screen, here is the link for you to go to, and those will also be inside of the community event and the YouTube link as well. And if you can, maybe you can real quickly with your phone scan this and give us some feedback on the community. The community is new, so we're looking for any any feedback that you're willing to give us on that. On the community, and this of course will be a part of the slide deck will be converted to a PDF, and it'll be attached to the community event as well. So if you can't do it, or if you haven't been able to grab your phone real quickly, you'll be able to do that via there. So again, any feedback that you can give us there, we'd greatly appreciate it. And with that, thank you as usual, and we will see everybody in 2 weeks to close out the year with our last session. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you everybody who came.